When you see the joy of these indigenous Payaz Christians from the Nassau tribe in southern Colombia, it's hard to imagine all they've had to endure because of their faith in Jesus Christ.
We have been persecuted simply because we are evangelical Christians. We don't want to come under the tribal leaders and do the things they say we have to do.
Marco was one of the leaders of this refugee village in the Andes Mountains and was among those who stood up to the tribal leaders because what they were being told to do was wrong, like stealing, doing land raids, drunkenness, chewing of cocoa leaves, and abandoning Christianity to take part in rituals linked to Spiritism. As a result of their stand, Marco says they were threatened by the village leaders who have ties to the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, also known as FARC.
We have also been threatened by death, psychological threats. They say they would take away our medical aid, there would be no schools for our children, and they would cut off electricity and water.
As a result, around 50 families traveled over 100 kilometers and set up a temporary village on a farmer's land, living in little huts with dirt floors. It's been a struggle to survive.
Our people had to do something we never would have thought we have to do, and that was go into the marketplace and beg for money to support our families. Slowly, we got the trust of the farmers in the region, and one by one, they started to hire people from our tribe. Now, our people have work.
Around 36 Christian families from other villages in the region also moved to the makeshift village after being expelled from their communities. Some of them had been badly beaten up, including on their legs, before being chased out. The anger towards the Christians even led to this church being destroyed, which was secretly videoed. You can see men on the roof dismantling the building. But it was the torture of the believers that was so hateful.
What triggered it was when the wives were submitting to their husbands and not the tribal leaders about worshiping the Lord freely and following their husbands' advice. So the tribe descended on them and put the husbands in jail for 72 hours and put them in stocks and those torture machines that rip their limbs, and also gave them 20 lashes, some more, some less. After that, we were forced to leave.
Lenore told us about how one young girl had begged the tribal leaders to beat her instead of her father, fearing he would be killed. They granted her request, whipping her from the waist down.
The pressure was increasing more and more, and the tribal leaders started to come down on us because of our belief in God, that He is bigger, and the gods that the tribes have believed in. So we were fasting and praying about this. Finally, they destroyed everything and kicked us out.
Lenore's husband, Wilson, was a leader in the church. What he taught his fellow Christians was not appreciated by the tribal leaders. In April of 2013, Wilson was just heading out to Cali to sell raspberries in the city with a dozen of his fellow co-workers when they were stopped by members of the local tribal police. Wilson and the others, that included women, were taken to a secluded area while the tribal police decided what to do with these Christians.
We had to endure hunger and cold for 3 days.
Then they tortured the men by putting them in stocks, something like this.
And then they put the wood really tight around my legs. And then they hang you upside down for 15 minutes. After that, my legs got numb and I couldn't walk. I fell to the floor. They put me in a chair and whipped me 15 times. They also whipped my friends. I prayed that the Lord would help me get through the whipping.
Wilson says the Lord answered his prayer.
After the whipping, they said to me, "This is your fault because you have been terrible." I told them I didn't do anything wrong. The only thing I didn't do was the witchcraft, and I told others not to participate in that. I prayed the Lord would help me endure. I didn't feel anything. The Lord made it so I didn't feel the pain while they were whipping me. The other brothers and sisters prayed the same thing, and the Lord gave us all the strength. Some of them fainted.
According to the Voice of the Martyrs partner Russell Stendhal of Colombia Para Cristo, there are more than 400,000 indigenous believers in 4 states in southern Colombia, among the 3.5 million indigenous people.
We've become more and more aware of them, and they're one of the largest tribes in Colombia. And it's been one of the most intense persecution situations, but this is probably where the gospel is growing the fastest in Colombia right now, is among the Nasa Indians.
Colombia Pericristo has several dozen Christian radio stations all over the country broadcasting the gospel into some of the most dangerous places on earth. This new village for these indigenous Christians will not only have their own church building, but also their own radio station like this one to proclaim the one true God, even to those who violently oppose the gospel.
The Lord has given us ways of helping these people to where we're perceived as part of the answer. And many times even the non-Christian Indians thank us for helping them to have a tribal radio station that, of course, is run by the Christians.
As we look back and see what the Lord has done, yes, we have gotten stronger and have been strengthened.
Strengthened to continue to live for Christ and advance His kingdom in Colombia. I'm Greg Musselman for Christian World News.